In the previous lesson, we learned how to rehydrate an aggregate from history by replaying all events from the stream. This approach works well for aggregates with a small number of events. However, as the number of events grows, the rehydration process can become time-consuming and quite inefficient. To address this issue, we can use a technique known as snapshots. Snapshots are a way to reduce the need to replay the entire event log every time you want to reconstruct the current state of an entity. A snapshot is essentially a point-in-time representation of an entity's state. It captures the relevant data that represents the entity's state at a certain event or event sequence. Instead of replaying all the events from the beginning of time, you can use the snapshot as a starting point and then apply only the subsequent events to reach the desired current state. Snapshots are particularly useful when dealing with aggregates that have accumulated a substantial number of events over time, making state reconstruction from scratch a very resource-intensive operation. While this might not be the case in our application so far, snapshots are still a very useful technique to learn and understand, as at some point your system might benefit from utilizing them. For example, imagine that we have an aggregate that has accumulated more than 1,000 events over time. A good example of such an aggregate would be a shared live document that is edited by multiple users, be it a Google Doc or a Google Sheet. Each set of changes made by a user would be represented by an event, being an accumulation of all changes made by that user within a single session. Long-lived documents would have a substantial number of events over time, with additions, deletions of text, images, tables, etc. If we wanted to rehydrate such an aggregate, we would have to replay all events. However, if we have a snapshot that captures the state of the aggregate after, let's say, 1,000 events, we can use that snapshot as a starting point instead of a base aggregate, and then apply only the subsequent 1,000 events to reach the desired current state. With this technique, we can significantly reduce the time it takes to rehydrate an aggregate. On the other hand, storing snapshots is yet another concern that we would have to take care of, making our system even more complex. So make sure to always keep that in mind and make sure that your application really needs snapshots before implementing them. Adding snapshots in our application here would be overkill, but you might find them useful in your own projects, so we wanted to make sure to mention them so that you keep them in mind for your future projects.